Hello again. I'm back with another clock. This one is an Ingraham. I have worked on two Ingrahams in the past. After the first one, I found it to be so difficult that I said I would never work on another one. But when I found the second one, I liked the look of it quite a bit. It was a much smaller clock. I gave it a try, and it turned out to have a completely different type of motor than the first one and was much easier to repair. I found this one from a subscriber who contacted me telling me about a website he found. It's called heirloomclocks.net, and on it, it has a lot of clocks that are for sale, but the ones he thought I would be interested in are called wonder clocks, as in you wonder what to do with them because all of those clocks were non-working, broken, for parts only, that sort of thing. I took a look at the site and found that Heirloom Clocks was a business in Pennsylvania owned by a fellow named Carl Hartman, and he bought, sold, repaired, and collected clocks for 40 years. And he passed away a year ago, and his wife has set up on this website, it looks like all of his clocks, and she's made them available for sale. Some of them are quite old, very expensive, but the ones under the Wonder Clock section are going for as little as $10. So I actually found three that looked interesting, and I got them. And this Ingraham is the first one, and it definitely has a few issues. One thing I noticed is that it seems that Carl put information tags on all of his clocks. All three I have these little labels attached. One here reads, Ingraham needs work, and the other one says Ingraham SSD2, that's the model number, 1938. It's a solid walnut case, slant back design with black Deco trim, electric self-start with a bell strike. And it does say strike on the front of the clock. Don't know if it just strikes on the hour or counts the hours or also on the half hour. Hopefully I'll find out once I have it open. But more importantly, on the back it reads 2002 book value of $275. And finally it says faulty, do not plug in. I have not plugged it in yet. I plan to set it up on my work table, open it up, and try to figure out if it takes power or not. This is what he means by the slant design, tilted backwards. So let me get this set up and take it from there. Okay, for an 85-year-old clock, the case is in very good condition. Very few scratches and scuff marks on it. No real damage to speak of. I do see on the dial, I don't know if this is dirt in here or some pitting on it. I won't know until it's open. But the first thing that I want to do, because the tag here says faulty motor and not to plug it in, I'm going to test for the continuity in the circuit, see if the wiring is all intact. And to do that, I use my ohm meter. And I just touch the leads to the plug. And if the circuit's intact, you'll see numbers flashing here. Okay, nothing's happening. So clearly there's a break somewhere. Next I'll open it up and see if I can figure out where this is coming from. Get that screw out of here. Oh, the screw fell into it. I'll have to retrieve it. And let's remove the set knob. Oh, this comes off to the left. It's on to the right, rather. Okay. I recognize this motor. This is the same one that was in the second Ingraham clock that I repaired. So that's pretty good. I think I should know how to fix this. Let's see if we can remove the case. And here's the reason why there's no power. The wire has broken, one of the wires from the coil, this one here. Don't know if I can get it closer to you or not. But the wire that's supposed to go here to the coil is ripped. Which means, if I'm lucky, I might have another coil that I can just replace this with. So let me take a look at my parts department I have here and see what I can come up with. I was unable to come up with a coil to replace this with. Keep in mind, all of my parts pretty much come from clocks that I was unable to repair. I just take them apart and save all the pieces. But what surprised me is I found something even better, which is this. It's a match to this whole plate here. And what's also interesting is I know for a fact this did not come from an Ingraham clock, which means whether they manufactured them and sold them to other companies or vice versa, I don't know. It even has the same M9505 number here. So what I'm going to look to do is remove this, replace it with this, attach the wire to these leads here, and then we'll check to see if that's all it takes to get this clock running. So let me take a closer look to see how I want to take this apart. First thing I want to do though, let me just cut this wire. Okay. Put the case aside. There's that screw. Okay, as I do in all my videos, I'm going to take a few photos of all of this so I have a good idea where everything goes before I start to take it apart. But from what I'm seeing, it looks like this plate will come off. There's two nuts holding it here and two over here. So let me get to work on taking some photos and then I'll undo these. I'll start with these two. Some sort of a washer here. It's pretty snug. I'll leave it for now. This one's coming up, I think. It's almost threaded on here. Now I have these two. Come on. Kind of stuck in here. Oh, I'll get to that in a moment. Let me take this one off. This is a smaller one. Okay. I'll get that out later. Let's see how easy this comes up. It's a bit snug here. Give me a couple of minutes to try to tease this off. I won't waste a lot of time until I have it off. I think I just about have it removed. And let's see if I can slide this one on. Okay, give me a couple of minutes to get this properly seated. I'll put the nuts back on and then take it from there. I've realized the reason I can't get this seated is I'm putting this on upside down. Even though they both have the writing on the coil, but you can see the difference in the position of these little bars here. And I must have picked up on that on the previous clock that I worked on, because when you turn it over, I actually have the word top written on here. So let's see if I can get this placed properly now. That seemed a bit easier. Okay, I'm going to work on seating the nuts back into position, and then I'll proceed from there. I've secured the plate back on. What I want to do next is cut off the end of the wire here. And then I'm going to strip off the insulation, attach the wire to the two leads here, and then I'll check for continuity, and if I have it, I'll plug it in and see if it works. So it'll take some time to do all that. Let me get started on that. I've attached the wire. Let me check for the continuity with the ohm meter again. And we're good. So now let me plug this in. Open up this wire here. Hopefully this will stay put. I'm not soldering it yet. It's just sort of wrapped around. Okay, plugged in. Let me turn it on. Ah, it started to move. Okay. Now, if this is not turning freely, what that means is the rotor in here, the oil in it is probably dried out and gunked up, so I'm going to have to take this apart, remove the rotor, and if I recall correctly from the last one I worked on, there's a screw that I can remove. It'll give me access to clean out the old oil and put in some new oil. So let me go back to removing this whole thing again, and once it's off, I'll continue. This should be a bit easier this time. Okay, I want to take the rotor off. And this little disc here, this is sort of like Bakelite. It's just a plastic. So I got to be careful with that. And over here is the screw I was talking about. I should be able to remove this. And definitely some oil in here. To clean this out, I'm not going to show the whole steps here. I've shown it many times on previous videos. I have one video just called How to Repair a Frozen Rotor, which goes into detail, but I fill this with liquid wrench and then let it sit overnight and drain it. Then fill it with 3-in-1 oil, let that sit overnight, and then drain that. I might do that a second time because it's hard to empty one of these when the hole's in the middle here as compared to on the end where you could shake it out. And then I finish up with some synthetic clock oil, and that so far has been quite successful in repairing all of these rotors. So I'm going to go ahead and begin work on that, and when I'm ready to close it up and see if it works, then I'll continue. One thing I'm noticing though that I should point out is when I mention how this should be not so difficult for me to repair based on doing one of these in the past, that one wasn't a chime clock. And what I'm seeing in here are a lot of different levers and springs. So this is definitely going to be a bit more complex than I was expecting to see. And but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, let me get to work on the rotor. One change in plans for me. It feels as if I'm having a real hard time shaking out all of the liquid wrench that I put in here. That's as far as I've gotten. No matter how much I try to get out, there's still some left in here, it seems. So what I'm going to do, I've decided, I'm going to drill a small hole right where that dot is. That way I can set it on its side. Gravity will pull it all down. It'll be a lot easier to shake it all out. So I'll drill the hole and then proceed with the getting out what's left of my liquid wrench, and then doing the 3-in-1 oil and then the synthetic oil. So let me work on that. I wasn't planning on showing this, but I drilled the hole and I couldn't believe what was coming out of here. All of this. So definitely the right call. So anyway, let me just let this sit now for a while. But I thought you might get a kick out of seeing that. Okay, I've cleaned out and re-lubricated the rotor. And one thing I can show is that at the start, I was unable to turn this output gear at all. But now, it's really turning quite freely. So what I'm going to do next is seal up the hole here with some solder. Then I'll place the rotor back into the mechanism and see if the clock works. I've placed the solder. I'm going to seat the rotor. Now I'm going to position the plate back over it. That'll take a couple of minutes to get it secured, and then I'll be ready to see if it works. Okay, I've seated the plate, secured it, put the washers back in, the two nuts here and here. I have it plugged in. Let me turn it on. And it's running. How about that? So what I want to do next is remove the glass in the rim, take off the hands, see if I can clean up the dial. So let me get to work on that. To do that, I have to bend out these tabs here. There's one there. There's one. And let's see if that's enough. All right. All right, let me take a closer look at the hands to see if this is threaded on or a friction grip. And I'll probably apply a little bit of my WD-40. It always makes it easier to remove the hands. They look like friction grip, so I'll apply the WD-40. Let that soak in, give it a few minutes, and then I'll try to remove them. It's been soaking for a while. Let me give it a try. Got it. Next, we'll try the minute hand. That was pretty easy. And the hour hand. Not bad at all. Okay, I'm not sure how much of this is going to clean off, but I'll give it a try. So let me work on that, and then we'll see how it comes out. I've cleaned off whatever dirt is on the dial, but these little spots, it's pitting, that's not coming off. So what I'm going to do now, in reverse order, reposition the dial, I'll reseat the hands, I'm going to clean up the glass, and maybe even try to polish this brass rim. Once that's completed, I'll just reassemble everything, and the next step after that will be to clean and polish the clock case. So let me get to work on all of this now. Everything is cleaned and polished. I like to show how I seat the hands. Start with the hour, pointing to the 12. Then the minute hand. And the second hand can go anywhere. Very good. Now I'm going to proceed putting everything else back together. It's back together, and what I'm finding interesting, it does say it's a strike clock, which I think is different from a chime clock. It probably just strikes on the hour. And when I turn the set knob, there's a distinct click that you hear on the hour. And on the side, what I'm seeing is an arm that would ring a bell. Now, I don't see it moving at all as I turn the hands, and I'm hoping that once power is going through the whole thing and all these gears are turning, something's making this arm ring on the hour. But I guess I won't find that out until everything's back together. So next up is to work on the case. I plan on giving it a good cleaning, and then I'm going to go over it with my Howard's Restore Finish and the feed and wax to give it the polish. But I think for such an old case, this is in pretty good condition. So let me get to work on that next. I've gone over the case with the Restore Finish. It's come out looking much better already. I still have to do the wax. But what I also want to do is the back plate is in really bad condition. So I'm going to repaint this as well. I've completed the work on the case, and I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. Has a nice polish to it, nice shine. And I also painted the back of the plate. That looks much better. It's going to be a nice look when everything's put back together. So what I want to do next is attach the power cord back to the clock. And to do that, first I have to pass the power cord through the plate. And then through the back of the case. And then I put a knot in it. And then I have to solder the wire to the contacts here. That'll take a few minutes, so let me work on that, and then I'll continue. I've soldered the wire. What I have to do next is seat the clock back into the case. And then slide up the back plate and secure it with the screws. A couple go here, the two over here, and the set knob. And that'll take a few minutes. Let me work on that. Once it's back together, I'll continue. Everything is back together. The last thing I have to do is to reseat the set knob. Tighten it up a bit. And that pretty much completes it. One thing I want to mention is that while I was restoring the case and working on painting the back plate, I had the clock plugged in for a few hours, and at no time did it strike when it would hit the hour. And I really don't know why that's not functioning. Unless I get another clock like this that is working, I might not be able to figure out what it is that needs to be adjusted. But until then, I do believe I have a nice working clock here. Let me set it up on my work table, and we'll give it a final test. I've set it up. It's plugged in. Let me turn it on. And it's running. So there you have it. An Ingraham model SSD2 from 1938. I'm quite pleased with how this one came out, especially knowing the backstory on it, the history of it, the fact that I brought it back to life, so to speak. I'm happy about that. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. Any questions or comments you have are always welcome. And that pretty much wraps things up. Bye for now.